Healthy aging, life after 70, food as medicine, natural health that actually works. Not from a doctor trying to sell you something. Not from an influencer with a ring light. From people who lived past 100 and earned every single word. This is The Art of Aging.
Hi there, welcome to the Art of Aging podcast. Let's jump in.
There are cells in your body right now that are neither living nor dead. They cannot divide, they cannot repair, they cannot do the job they were born to do. But they won't leave. They sit there, secreting a toxic chemical fog that inflames the tissue around them, disrupts healthy cells, and accelerates the very process we call aging. Scientists call them senescent cells. Most of us, when we hear the description, call them something else. Zombies. And there is something in a cup of green tea that has learned how to face them. There was a woman I know, let's call her Marguerite, who was 71 years old and had drunk green tea every morning for most of her adult life. Not because anyone told her to, because she'd grown up watching her grandmother make it. Because the ritual of boiling the water and watching the leaves unfurl felt like the right way to begin a day. She never thought of it as medicine. It was ceremony. And then one afternoon, her grandson, in his second year of biology at university, called her and said, "Grandma, do you know what's in your tea? Do you know what it's actually doing?" She laughed and said she had no idea. He told her about EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate. He told her about senescent cells. He stumbled over the words and got excited and eventually just texted her a link to a paper. She printed it out. She read it at her kitchen table. And she said she cried a little because something she'd done every day for 50 years had been doing something profound inside her, quietly, without her ever knowing. Let's talk about what senescent cells are and why they matter so deeply to healthy aging. Every cell in your body has a life cycle. It is born, it performs its function, it divides, and eventually, after a certain number of divisions, it stops. This stopping is called senescence, and it was designed by evolution as a protection mechanism. A cell that has divided too many times has accumulated too many errors. Better to stop it than risk it going rogue. In youth, the immune system efficiently clears senescent cells. They are identified, flagged, and removed. The body stays clean. But as we age, and this begins measurably after 60, the immune system becomes less efficient at this clearance. Senescent cells accumulate. They cluster in joints, arteries, organs, and brain tissue. And here is where the story darkens. Senescent cells do not retire quietly. They secrete what researchers call the SASP, the senescence-associated secretory phenotype, a cocktail of inflammatory compounds, matrix-degrading enzymes, and signaling molecules that tell surrounding healthy cells, you too should stop. You too should slow. You too should age. This cellular communication is now understood to be a core driver of age-related conditions, from arthritis to cardiovascular disease to cognitive decline to the visible aging of skin. Scientists have spent decades looking for compounds that can either clear senescent cells or suppress their toxic secretions. They have a name for these interventions: Senolytics and Senomorphics, and they have found candidates in several natural compounds: quercetin, fisetin, dasatinib, a chemotherapy drug which comes with significant risks, and EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate, the most abundant and bioactive polyphenol in green tea. Multiple studies now show that EGCG has the ability to suppress SASP, to walk into the room where the senescent cells are broadcasting their distress signal and turn down the volume. It also demonstrates the ability to induce apoptosis, the programmed death, in certain populations of senescent cells, particularly in metabolic tissue in the liver. It modulates inflammatory pathways. It supports DNA repair in cells that haven't yet reached senescence. It crosses the blood-brain barrier and has been shown to protect neurons from the inflammatory fog that zombie cells cast. 3 cups a day. That's the amount that most of the research points toward for meaningful EGCG concentrations. Not a supplement, not a powder, just tea. Brewed right, drunk slowly. Here is how to make this real in your daily life, because the how matters just as much as the what. Green tea is not all equal. Matcha, powdered whole leaf green tea, contains the highest concentration of EGCG, roughly 3 times that of brewed tea. But standard loose leaf green tea, brewed properly, is also potent. The key word is properly. Do not pour boiling water over green tea. This destroys a significant portion of the EGCG. The ideal brewing temperature is between 70 and 80 degrees Celsius. Water that has just come off the boil and been allowed to sit for 2 to 3 minutes. Steep for 2 to 3 minutes. No longer, or it becomes bitter. 3 cups. 1 in the morning, 1 mid-morning, 1 early afternoon. After 2 p.m., the L-theanine and mild caffeine in green tea can affect sleep for some people, so keep your 3rd cup earlier rather than later. EGCG absorption is significantly enhanced by vitamin C. A small squeeze of lemon in your tea, not milk, which can bind to the polyphenols and reduce absorption, is one of the simplest upgrades you can make. Green tea on an empty stomach can cause nausea in some people. If that's you, drink it 20 minutes after a light meal. And if you find you genuinely cannot tolerate green tea, matcha mixed into a small bowl of oatmeal still delivers meaningful EGCG. The body is flexible if you meet it with creativity. But I want to return to Marguerite, because her story doesn't end with the printout on the kitchen table. What moved her wasn't the science. What moved her was the continuity. Her grandmother had taught her to make tea. Her grandmother had lived to 94, sharp-minded and straight-backed, in a village in the mountains where people drank green tea every day and grew vegetables and walked everywhere. Marguerite hadn't thought of her grandmother as practicing preventative medicine. She thought of her as living a life. But this is the wisdom that runs deeper than any polyphenol, that the practices handed down to us across generations often contain a truth that science is only now learning to measure. That the old woman in the mountain village who drank 3 cups of tea, grew her own herbs, walked to the market, and sat in the sun every morning was not being quaint. She was engineering her own longevity with the tools available to her. We are only now building the vocabulary to describe what she already knew. And there is something profoundly moving about that. About the idea that your body, this extraordinary living system, is not passively aging. It is in constant conversation with what you give it. Every cup of tea is a word in that conversation. Every sip is a signal. I am still caring for you. I have not stopped paying attention. After 70, when the culture around us has largely stopped being curious about our bodies, choosing to tend yours is a radical act. Not because it will make you immortal, but because it is an act of love toward yourself, toward the years you still have, toward the mornings still to come.
Senescent cells, the zombie cells that accumulate after 60, are now understood as central drivers of the aging process. They secrete inflammatory compounds that degrade tissue and signal healthy cells to slow. EGCG, the key polyphenol in green tea, has demonstrated the ability to suppress these inflammatory signals and induce death in populations of senescent cells. 3 cups of properly brewed green tea per day with a squeeze of lemon may be one of the simplest and most powerful daily habits available to older adults. But beyond the biology, there is an older truth that caring for your body with intention, the way your grandmother cared for her garden, her kitchen, her morning rituals, is one of the most profound things a person can do with the time they have. Everything shared on the art of aging is for storytelling and general information only. Nothing here constitutes medical advice. EGCG in concentrated supplement form may interact with certain medications. Always consult your physician before making changes to your diet or adding supplements, especially if you are on blood thinners or medications metabolized by the liver.
If this episode found you, pass it on. Share it with someone who could use a reason to brew a cup of tea this afternoon. Follow @Art of Aging Podcast wherever you listen, and leave a review if these stories are changing the way you think about this chapter of your life. That is why we are here.